It was a nice surprise. That's the best way I can explain it. I knew I was heading into, a conference where obviously the majority were all divers, pretty much technical and so on. But I actually found a very open audience. I mean, I wasn't expecting them, to be so receptive even to what we're doing. And in fact, I'm planning to come again simply because of that, because we have other plans, whether it's other courses and whatnot, and even the feedback I got from some of the participants themselves. So it was definitely a very positive experience from my point of view. I would probably use the word informal in the sense, sometimes you go to certain conferences and everyone is a bit sort of too serious. On the other hand, the subjects were very serious. So the atmosphere was informal, but the topics discussed were very relevant to the industry, because I am also a diving instructor myself. And even then from, even from an academic point of view, training standards. So there was some serious discussions going on, which I think is much needed in the diving sector. Yes, I did. And I'm still working on some of the networks, even for potential collaboration between our institute and this particular organization. There were others. Would say I'm, let's say, in touch, but I probably would see those as bit longer term. But definitely, no, it was definitely a very, very positive experience from my point of view, even in terms of networking. I think I liked the discussion between, like I said, we call them the main agencies, PADI, SSI, and I think there was SDI, when they started even discussing the technical side and the issue with some sort of qualifications. Because they put in some arguments there which actually have, I would call them, long-term implications for the industry. And I think let me call it, the healthy discussion which arrived proved it. Definitely the networking part. And more importantly, the fact that they bring people from different areas, whether, for example, all right, we have the main training agencies, but that's only one part. Then there were obviously other individuals and other persons who are doing very specialistic types of diving, which is something which not everyone knows about. I mean, including myself. I mean, you would hear about it, but you wouldn't know the details. And I think spreading and networking with these type of people, and even then we had obviously people from governmental organizations, again, maybe looking from a more even, let me use the word, legalistic point of view when it comes to implementing certain things, including maybe regulations and so on. I think that is a scope for, it could be, even a bit perhaps highly spirited discussion, but I think it's important. I mean, whether it's diving agencies, whether it's conservation agencies, whether it's government, individuals who are doing, advanced research. So we have different people. I mean, I could talk about myself, who is more of coming from a more academic background, and there were others as well. I think that cross-fertilization of ideas is extremely important, which is something which I think, I mean, we see it even when I go for elsewhere and present certain papers. It's very clear that sometimes the diving sort of is a little bit on its own. So I think the fact that dive talks makes them mix, let me put it that way, is very useful. No, pretty much what I've said. I mean, there's this opportunity for cross-fertilization. I mean, when you see certain people doing research with, for example, people living underwater, And then if I come with some stuff even of what we do and what we do with then when it comes to wearable technologies, with which we can transmit to the surface biometric functions of divers. And you link that with people who went down 150 meters to whatever, you know, and all the situations they had to deal with, and preparation and risk assessment. And you start realizing that although we're all coming from different parts, in a way, we're all looking at the same thing, you know, essentially even the safety of the industry and the improvement of standards, including recreational ones. Perhaps that is something which needs to be elaborated further as well. But it will come simply because, you know, it's inevitable. I mean, the fact that people start, at least we have a forum where people from different areas can talk and can even exchange ideas, which I think is the most important thing. And this is the most important thing which I found. So the International School of Dive Safety and Medicine, as you may know, is a joint collaboration between Dan Europe and the Institute of Tourism Studies, ITS. The idea is to focus on aspects of dive safety and medicine. Now, if I can give you some examples, we started off with a bachelor program in dive safety management. This is our 4th year running. We're actually planning a review after, like, because we had the first 3 years. So we had our first cohort of graduates. And we realized that, you know, as always, you always find some other areas which need, you know, perhaps further consideration. Let me just give you 2 examples. We're looking at including something related to taking certified but divers which have a physical disability, which obviously implies a completely different set of risk assessment sort of ideas to consider, just to give you one example. Something which we're trying to think about now, because we're doing some collaboration with the superintendents of heritage. It's like, you know, our heritage watchdog. Sort of, let me call them legal issues when it comes to diving historical sites. Obviously, people should not, you know, take stuff from there. I mean, the obvious things, but you know, like even just giving, listen, there are even laws, not only in Malta or within the EU, but elsewhere. So obviously, if you're a diving instructor, I mean, maybe you just need to add 1 sentence to your dive group. Listen, you can take pictures, you can do this, but you can't do that. That is some of the things which we're planning. Obviously, we have quite a few parts related to diving safety, including certain first aid, which even, like, let me call it advanced first aid, which normally you wouldn't find in the traditional diving courses. At the moment, as I've said, we have this bachelor program. The idea is that, and we're actually getting a good number of people who are already instructors. So what happens is that obviously they can upgrade their knowledge, and in a way it opens up even further career prospects, in the sense that, I mean, they can move on, for example, in management, not only of dive centers, but they could be, for example, use the expression, a dive safety officer at a university. So they would be the persons, you know, taking care and preparing anything related to safety, the organization of the dive, what needs to be done. If, for example, there are people who are going to do an underwater survey, whether it's archaeology, whether it's fish life, whatever. We also have similar people who may be working in the industry, anywhere where there is diving involved. Including, for example, and we do have some people, for example, work in the oil industry as well. Some of them already have the experience, but they may not have the whole range of knowledge which we provide. That's quite a challenging question. And the reason why I'm saying it is because we are finding it ourselves that some of the things we're doing have been touched very little. So if I had to, as we say in Maltese, run away from your question, I would say you can ask anything about dive safety. Perhaps I would probably focus on the recreational, the beginners. I think there people make lots of assumptions. As one of my colleagues said, I'll just give you one example. In school, and you've been to school, when you're a young child, you have a book planned for a young child. When you're at university, you have different books. Look at the diving manuals. They're the same. So I'm teaching a book, or I'm using online material, as far as I know, geared for adults to teach children. And, when you think about it, and I think I actually had put a question to some people there. I said, with all the money being, it's about time that you start thinking of having certain types. And if it's online, which is even cheaper, my background is online learning, so they can't cheat with me on that. I think it's only fair, and it makes more sense that if you're having a younger audience, you have proper resources aimed at that group of people. So I think that is something which the industry, whether it's because everyone seems to going, the focus. In the last dive talk, there was lots of focus on the technical aspect, which is fine because it's the new trend. There's lots of investments going on, but before people come there, they start from open water in 5-10 meters. So I think we have to get that right first. That is my opinion, but I think that's my teacher background coming out.